Hey guys, welcome to Spark of Art episode 2. My guest here today is one of the big artists that kind of inspired me on my journey. He's a pro working in the industry, and you might know him as the founder of the famous art camp. So yeah, we are here with Noah Bradley. Hey Noah.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome, cool. Thanks for being here. How's the whole COVID thing there right now? Are you got vaccinated yet?
I did actually. I got my first of the two. So I get the next one in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Nice.
So yeah, but I'm looking forward to COVID being over. I miss traveling.
Yeah, I think everybody does right now. So okay. So Noah, I think everybody kind of knows about like your whole career and stuff like that. Like I discovered you like with the whole I think it was the art camp thing, but like the first kind of experience I had with you was the whole don't go to art school. That was like the famous one like I got to reading, and that was a cool article. And yeah, where did you kind of start art, and like just kind of beginning? What was your first art experience? When did you decide to make it a career and kind of moving on?
So I kind of always drew and painted. It was just something I did as a kid. I was always, kind of okay at it, and it was a fun thing to do. I liked coming up with imaginary characters and drawing those. But I never took it that seriously. I always treated it as a fun hobby, and that's what I thought it was always going to be. It was just a fun hobby for myself. I thought I would have some other way to make money, some other career. But about the time I turned 18, I figured I had to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And during that time, I somehow ended up on, I want to study art and I want to somehow make it as a professional artist. And I don't think I knew at the time what that actually looked like. I don't think I knew what careers in art looked like at all. But I thought, well, I could probably figure it out. And so I just went for it, and I started studying really hard and working to get really good. And then about maybe 4 or 5 years later, after a lot of studying, I was good enough to start going freelance.
Cool. Was there any other like career in mind other than art? Like you had a plan B or so, like when you got started?
Yeah, I had a few other options at the time. I was actually going to be a computer programmer. I really wanted to make video games, and I was decently good at it. And also graphic design. I was pretty good graphic designer already. But I really hated working with clients. And I knew that even though in art, you work with clients, in graphic design, you work with clients who have no idea what they're looking for. And that is not fun. I feel bad for graphic designers out there. Like, you got to deal with just clueless people that, I just couldn't handle it. And then I also thought about building houses. So my dad has built houses his whole life, and I thought about taking over the family business and building houses.
All right, and then you decided to become an artist. Awesome.
That's
amazing. All right. Did you at the moment kind of go to art school or anything, or it was just?
I did. I actually went to a few schools. I was homeschooled when I was young, so I never went to public schools or anything. And then I ended up going to kind of community college, which is our sort of like small colleges, pretty young. So I already had college credit going. And then I went to another local university. And then I finally went to an actual art school. I went to the Rhode Island School of Design. I spent a year there. It was great, but it was really expensive. I racked up about 40 grand in debt from the 1 year that I went there, which is utterly insane. And that was with a sizable scholarship. Like I had one of the bigger ones of anybody I knew there, but still, it's just so expensive. So after a year there, I transferred back down to a state university here, VCU, and finished up my degree there.
All right, and that was like the prices back then, and right now is like,
Yeah, I was just looking up the prices the other day. I'm gonna do a kind of a follow-up video thing on that article. And God, the prices are even worse now. RISD's estimate is something like 70 grand a year for their education. So I think I added up and it was over 300K for 4 years at RISD, according to their own estimates.
We were like when we were younger, we were like kind of estimating how much money we need to save up for like the art school
Right.
journey, and we kind of was watching like Ross Tran, and like we were like,
Mhm.
yeah, we can go to art center, we can, we
Right.
can kind of become like a racehorse out of it,
Right.
they'll train you really bad, and then like we kind of realized you kind of need to be rich to become an artist right now, like on those schools. So
Yeah, to go to art school, you need rich parents, or you need a full ride scholarship, which they do give out. RISD doesn't do it for international students though, so yeah, that one's ruled out. You got to be domestic, and then you can get a full ride. But it's hard to do. So if you can get a full ride, or you have really rich parents, yeah, art school's great. But aside from that, I'd go to some other art school. Like I know there's some European universities and stuff that or free education basically. And if you're really desperate to get a degree, I'd go to something like that.
I mean, right now, like with the whole online thing, I mean, YouTube kind of trained me, to be honest. YouTube, and like I got started with Ahmed El Dori, your videos,
Mhm.
Feng Zhu, like Feng Zhu was like one of
Yeah.
the first videos I found out, and it's like free
Oh
resources
yeah.
out there. So I think the online teaching has kind of changed this generation overall. Hopefully,
Oh,
kind of
it's
save
it's
money.
phenomenal. It's so much different than when I started. When I was, starting out 15 years ago, it was a different world. There were a few videos, and they were amazing because it was the only things you looked at. So everybody was watching the same like dozen art videos because that's all that existed. And so nowadays, it's just there's thousands and thousands of phenomenal videos out there. So I think it's just so easy to learn now, and justifying hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for
Yeah, it's a
college, it's just not worth it.
it's like a blessing and a curse at the same time though, because like I don't know if it's just me, but like if I right now there's too much information, I'm guessing, and
Mm.
people kind of take it for granted. But like back then you kind of had to go towards like the whole traditional loops, so you kind of have like better basic fundamentals than like right now. It's I have like 10,000 videos, but like I'll just watch them and not do anything like out of it.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an easy trap to fall into. And honestly, it's an easy trap in any field at any point, is that people can get obsessed with trying to get the information and not with actually using the information. So it happens.
So, how did you got started on your first job? Like, did you like go towards the school, or you kind of shoot an email and got lucky? What was the process?
Um, so there's kind of two first jobs. So the one I normally tell people about is Fantasy Flight Games. I did some card art for them,
Frozen.
and I had sent, I had sent a portfolio to them, and they sent me some work maybe a couple months after that, and they were cheap, like $100 cards. They're boring paintings, and yeah, so that's kind of my first job. I kind of had a job before that, but I don't tell people about that one too often because it was a small like video game company that approached me for some concept art, some character concept art, and I did it, but I didn't do exactly what they were looking for, and there was some miscommunication, and they ended up paying me like a kill fee of like $50 or something like that, and just like not wanting any more work from me, and it all just went down the drain. And then the game ended up being like kind of popular for a while on like Xbox Live or something back then, and I was like, geez. So yeah, that was kind of my first job, is like kind of got like canned halfway through the project, but whatever.
I think everybody has the kind of the employment horror stories, especially the first. Like, you don't really really don't know how to say no. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like my first time, so I have to do it.
And you probably shouldn't say no, honestly. Like when you're trying to get those first jobs, you should just take stuff. Like you should have some amount of backbone, because like those $100 cards they're not fun. So I don't know.
I mean, it's good if you do the art, and this is probably like every project, but like if it's good, like when you do the art and then they're like, yeah, it's okay, all good. But like there's always the the kind of redesigns that come back. Is like, yeah, you just spend the time doing
And the
it.
problem is that the cheaper the jobs are, usually the more picky the clients
Yeah, a
are.
lot, yeah, it's crazy.
I've found that the clients who give me just like tons of money are just like, yeah, that looks great. And then the clients that are trying to like cheapskate themselves will just be the most nitpicky finicky clients to work with. So
Probably the deadlines, because I think they have deadlines too. So they're like, yeah, that's good. We can move on. Stuff like that.
Yeah, and they're answering to other people. So there's a lot of reasons, but yeah.
I kind of like the big thing people know you about is like Magic the Gathering, like your cards, like, you know, like I don't really, I think you're the only environment artist that I kind of was like, wow, at the start. And then like, how did you got it started into Magic overall?
So I actually, I had met the art director maybe once or twice before that, but I don't know that he would have remembered who I was. I was just some guy at a convention. But I ended up sending him a postcard with a piece of mine on it, and then a little handwritten note saying, "Hey, I'd love to work with you sometime. Thanks, Noah," and had my URL and stuff on it. And I mailed it to the office like old school style. And then a month after I graduated art school, I got an email saying, "Hey, do you want some work?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And then I was convinced for maybe the first year or two of that every single like commission was going to be my last commission ever, and that they were going to totally fire me after that. But for whatever reason, they kept giving me work. So
the whole imposter syndrome.
Oh yeah, it's pretty strong.
All right. How was kind of the main experiences you had there? Did you like were there like did you do it freelance, or there was like you do it in house, so there were artists like kind of watching over you, helping you out? Was there the junior senior thing going on, or was it just like?
No, it's pretty much all freelance there with Magic. There are sometimes a couple in-house artists, kind of like concept art people sometimes, but for the most part, all the card art is done freelance. For instance, like the art directors can do cards for the game, but they don't actually get paid to do them. I think there's some like legal complication there where they can't pay.
Right?
Yeah, so they take care of the art direction and stuff and like that, and they do some concept art, but they don't actually do much of the commissioning there, or much of the art. So.
Cool. All right. So you also did a magazine for D&D, right?
I did some of their early. They used to do like this digital online magazine thing. They did a couple of them.
Anymore, so.
Yeah, I think they canceled it a few years back. But it was really like, I think D&D players loved it back then. So it was like regular new content for D&D, and people used to really like it. So I did a bunch of illustrations for that, and that was actually started right before I got Magic. So that was actually it was right around winter break of my senior year. So I was still in school when I started getting those assignments. So my last semester in school, I was doing a lot of freelance work.
And kind of the whole environment process, like people kind of like artists right now, they're just starting out, they're learning fundamentals, and they're like, they usually will go towards, like, if they're not going towards 3D, there's like, you're going between characters or environments. So how was like the whole process of you choosing which path is for me? Like, what was the spark that, you know, I want to do this, I like this one? Overall,
I started by doing a lot of character work. I really liked character work. That's all I thought I was going to do. Turns out people weren't that into my character work, and I started doing some environment work around maybe around my junior year, and people loved it. People just responded to it immediately. I started doing some plein air studies and started to really enjoy painting landscapes, and created some imaginative landscapes, and people really liked them, like way more than my character work. And I started to realize I was enjoying painting them more. And so I just kind of went with that and developed a starting portfolio of mainly environment focused work. And, you know, the world was different there. The art world was different 10 years ago. It was much smaller than it is now. And there weren't that many environment guys. There were a few of us, but there wasn't that much competition for environments. Everybody wanted to do characters. And so it was kind of an easy way for me to slip in the door. And yeah, I started getting work a lot faster than I probably would have had I focused on characters. And so I made environments, had the portfolio for it, and then I just started getting hired by all these places to do environment work.
Where was the portfolio stuff at? like back then? Was it like, because we didn't have ArtStation, so what was the main site used before?
I think we all just had our own websites. Well, I mean, there was like DeviantArt back then, but I didn't get any work from DeviantArt. There were a couple others, but yeah, nothing like that notable. Like I would post my work on various social media sites, but as far as how to get people to find me, I would just tell them my website. So, and that's honestly still what I do, is I just tell people to go to my website.
Yeah, I used to use DeviantArt a lot, but like you know what happened to it, right? You know, like the whole.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I never got any work on there anyway. Like in my years and years on DeviantArt, I've never gotten an actual good job from DeviantArt. So it is what it is.
I was just there like making friends and stuff like that in the whole art thing back in high school. Like I used to like I had this guy I messaged and I was like, your art is amazing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I went back and found him again and I'm like, yeah. All right. And is it true you kind of hated like environments at first, right?
I did. Yeah, I was bored out of my mind by them. I had no interest in them. I really did love characters. Like I loved drawing characters, painting characters. I thought that's what my art was going to be all about. I loved looking at character work and figurative illustration and stuff like that. And I just didn't care about environments until I started painting actual environments from life. And that just like changed my whole world, because I've always been kind of an outdoorsy guy. I love going hiking. I grew up in the country, and so I spent my childhood like outside in the woods. Like it's part of who I am. And so by painting outside, it was kind of a way to merge those two worlds of, I really love making pictures. I love making art, but I also love being outside. And this was a way I got to be outside while making art. And it was just a lot of fun. And that started to spark something in me. And it made me also realize that some of the aspects of art that I've always enjoyed the most were color and lighting. And I just love painting light. It's just super fun for me. And it turns out that landscapes are kind of an easier / better way to paint light, that it gives you a ton of freedom of what you can do. Like there are rules, there are limitations with figures. Like they have to look like figures. And that's fine. But with landscapes, there's kind of, there are rules, but there's kind of not. There's a lot of freedom of what you can do with a landscape. There's a lot of abstraction that goes in there.
Right. Like on a mountain, if you move a rock, nobody's going to notice. Yeah.
Sure. And you can do that, and you can, change and shift things and create these crazy forms. And you can do pretty much anything you want with the lighting. And as long as it looks cool, it'll be fine. And I just loved that. And I loved how I got to embrace that. So I did a complete 180 and started to love doing environment work, and have done obviously a ton of environments now. And I really enjoyed it.
So this was all traditional, right? So you went like outside and just drew?
Most of it, yeah. I was also doing some digital stuff at the same time. So most of my studies back then would have been traditional. But that said, I was also doing what we used to call speed paintings. I guess they're just sketches now. They used to be speed paintings. So I would just do like these 1 to 2 hour sketches and try to come up with a whole image in that time in Photoshop. And that was honestly really good training. I don't know why people dismiss that so much these days. They're like, oh, it's just, performance so that people could show off how fast they can make a painting. And I think it's actually really good training. I don't think enough people do it, because those quick sketches that I was doing back then have enabled me to do what I do now. Like it's the same exact thing as when I do a sketch for Magic. That would be the same process of, I need to make an image relatively quickly that reads and has nice lighting and color and all that stuff. And it's the exact same skills. So I don't know why people don't practice it as much as they should.
It's about the time limit thing, because people think about like, I don't know. I heard like speed painting is really bad for like kind of starting, when people are starting out, especially like the half an hour to like 45-minute ones, since like you don't really, pros can do a lot in that time for like the sketching purposes, but it's not really a good process. But like the whole 2 hour thing, I think that's where like people kind of mistake kind of the time limits of like that might actually be really better for your overall.
Right.
If you,
Yeah,
even if you are
I think
a
that
trophy to finish
I think a bit of both is good. Like even the half an hour stuff, even if you can't get much down, and like even when I was starting to do these, I couldn't get much like on a page in half an hour. I think the process of just doing that repeatedly gets you kind of used to it, of like making those like first decisions, like, all right, I'm gonna make the sky this color, boom, there's a giant blue, boom, I'm gonna make the ground this value, and like, does it look terrible? Well, I'm not gonna do that next time. Like, so making those like first decisions really fast, I think is really helpful, even though the results aren't gonna look great. And obviously it's not the only thing you want to do. You don't only want to do half an hour work forever. That's going to teach you a lot of bad habits, and you're going to miss out on a lot. But I think a bit of both is good.
And it's kind of really good for your kind of mentality as well, because like people, I'm talking about myself right now, but like when I do something real quick, even if it's not really good, it's like average. I'm happy with it more than when I spend like a whole amount of time on something and might turn bad. So I can like kind of get the result like really fast, so like I can kind of change course and kind of move on. Or
yeah. I don't feel bad if a sketch turns out badly. Like, okay, cool. I didn't waste that much time. But if I put 40 hours into a painting these days and it turns out awful, like I'm gonna feel terrible. Like, why am I gonna waste 40 hours on a piece that isn't that interesting? Like, I'm not gonna do that. So, yeah.
It's about the 1-2 read. So you have to kind of get it right on the the silhouettes, the kind of the overall before you kind of zoom into the kind of fundamental stuff, little stuff.
Yeah. If my sketch doesn't work, there's no reason to bother trying to finish it. It's not gonna magically get good.
Yeah.
By like, it's just not gonna happen.
All right. Okay, cool. Can you tell us about like kind of the Sin of Man project you've been working on? I think like before I was like I think I kind of saw you talking about it on Level Up like a few years ago, or you were kind of in the process of kind of drawing it. I think you've already finished it, but like, can you explain the process and like what was your mindset going through?
I don't think I haven't finished it. It's kind of like a project I'm ongoing with that I'm probably going to keep working on for maybe another 10 years or something. I've been working on it forever, and I think I'm just going to keep working on it. It started because I realized that in my head, a lot of my early pieces were all kind of supposed to be part of the same world, but I'd never really told anybody that. They were all just like these random landscapes to people. But to me, they were all part of the same like world. And it's all about what I just find fascinating to paint. And I find, fantasy really fascinating. I really like painting these weird landscapes, and I'm fascinated by like primal ancient people, like how humans used to live 50,000 years ago and stuff, and Neanderthals and all the stuff that happened back then. I just find super fascinating. And so I wanted to paint some of that stuff with like this nice fantasy twist to it, and these weird, strange creatures and all this kind of stuff. And so it's just a lot of themes that I really like painting. And so I kind of been putting them together in this world, and I've been writing stories to go with it and poems, and I'm going to do some longer fiction as well. And then of course, just a ton of art that goes into it. And it's just a lot of fun for me. And at one point I was like, all right, I really need to get like a finished product out the door. And then I realized I don't really have to do that. Like it's a passion project for me, and it's something I'm just going to keep working on, and it's something I love doing, and I'm just going to keep working on it. And sure, there probably will be some like finished projects at some point, like books or whatever else, but that's not really the biggest priority for me. I just want to keep making work for this world.
All right, awesome. So kind of what is the best tip you can kind of give to people starting out and trying environments and kind of wanting to become like an environment artist overall? What is like the best tip you can give, you think, like people in this like time kind of need right now to listen?
I think a lot more fundamental skills. I think that's the thing I see lacking most, is people want to get too fancy too fast. And so they're focused on, how to paint something specific or how to, photo bash stuff together, but they're lacking those fundamental skills of perspective or composition or values or lighting or something like that. And they don't have those skills yet. And so they want to jump to that further point without having that base level. And I think that's what's really lacking. And that's why my Art Camp 3 course, it goes super basic, here's some 3-value thumbnails. And if you can't do a 3-value thumbnail, you definitely can't do a great finished environment piece, no matter what. And so I just get really basic fundamental stuff and nailing that and doing the right kind of studies for that. And so that's I think the thing that I would emphasize and push is really focus on those fundamentals and a little bit more painting from life and reference. I see a lot of people paint stuff that just ends up looking kind of boring and lifeless. It's kind of the same idea as if somebody draws faces from imagination only without ever drawing from reference, is you're drawing what you've already got in your head, but you don't have that much visual information in your head. It's the same idea with landscapes, that if you haven't done a ton of studies and a ton of looking at the world, you don't really have that visual library to pull from yet. And so you end up kind of reproducing the same generic, bland landscapes that you see again and again. So yeah, that's another thing I see a lot of.
Yeah, I see a couple of my friends kind of bring our art towards us and they want feedback and stuff like that. And they're like, yeah, I didn't use any reference. And we're like, yeah, we know. It shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, it always does. Yeah, I do paint stuff without reference. A lot of my landscape stuff is done without reference, but that's because I've done a ton of stuff from reference. And there's some types of landscapes I can do from my head that I don't particularly need reference for.
Kind of bridge the gap, and you can figure stuff out because of the backlog. Yeah. All right. The kind of I think over a year ago, you kind of started the whole drawing every day, the thing with Rachel. And can you tell us kind of? I think you kind of finished it overall. I think is it ongoing, or is it still you're gonna take a rest and then kind of?
Which drawing every day thing was it? Because we've done a few at this point.
There was a video you put on your YouTube video about the whole process of just drawing every day with Rachel.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was a really good phase, and that's probably one we'd get back to at some point. But that was a great one because we both realized we wanted to work more, but we're also scatterbrained people and get distracted by everything. And so for that time, we just focused on putting in a certain number of hours every single day. And I think back then it was maybe 2 or 3 hours. And we just had to hit 2 or 3 hours of art every single day. And it really helped to just have that daily accountability goal. And we both improved crazy fast and did a ton of art. And it was really good. It was a really good exercise. And I've gone through a few phases since then. So I did the May sketch a day. So I did a new sketch every single day for all of May. And that was really good. That was a whole new challenge because I was also learning Blender to do that. So that was a whole thing. And then lately in the last 4 or 5 months, I've been doing a lot of figure studies. And so a lot of that was nearly every day, doing tons and tons of figure drawings and keeping track of those, and now figure paintings. And so I've been doing a lot of different things. So yeah.
Speaking of Blender, do you use a lot of 3D in your work? You don't, right?
I don't, but I should. So that was part of the motivation behind doing that May sketch day in Blender was I just always put off learning 3D. I don't know why, but I just did. And I was like, all right, screw it. I'm going to do a whole month where I just learn Blender and I just make a new image with Blender every single day. And it was a blast. I learned a ton. I put together all these sketches and I think they're really cool. And it was a whole lot of fun. It was sometimes challenging and some of the sketches are awful. But overall, it was just a great experience to know that now I can do that. Obviously, since then, I haven't used it as much as I would like to, which is maybe another problem. Maybe I need some way to kind of keep me accountable, to keep me going back to that and keep me making stuff in 3D. Because there are certain subjects I think I avoid because I'm not as comfortable doing them without the 3D. So architecture and stuff. I think I should probably do more of that in 3D. So, yeah.
And kind of how much do you think the industry is kind of expecting people to kind of know some 3D for like kind of even like concept or like kind of illustration and stuff like that? Do you think they kind of require more right now, or is it like?
I don't know if it would necessarily be required, but at this point, I see no reason why someone shouldn't know 3D. If I was going back in time and was back in art school, I would definitely learn 3D. You don't need to be a great 3D modeler, but even just a basic understanding of 3D is enough, and will just be a game changer. Like, drawing things in perfect perspective is really hard. It is hard and will always be hard. But putting some boxes into Blender and moving them around and changing the light source is really easy, and it will get you perfect drawing every single time. And that's the thing to remember, is that 3D is just crazy easy, and it's free, and it looks really good. Yeah, so I think some amount of 3D would be absolutely essential. And the fact that you can get Blender for free, the fact that you can watch a few tutorials and have more than enough like experience to do stuff with it. Like, I watched Yama Yerobev's videos on it, and within an hour I was making cool images. Yeah. Like, and that's what I needed. Like, I watched a few of the other ones that actually were like teaching me how to like be a 3D modeler. And they were good, but it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted like Yama's like thing of like, all right, I want to make like some shitty 3D models and just like slap things together and boom, I have an image. And that's what I wanted. I wanted just like a toy box to like move stuff around and make a cool image. And once I had those like basic skills of like, all right, this is how I think about like bad 3D modeling, but I could just like move stuff around and like boom, I was able to make images within an hour. So yeah. I don't see any reason why someone shouldn't learn 3D.
Yeah, like I saw the whole when I saw Yama, like he started the whole video with the grease pencil tool. I don't know if you have watched that video. I was like, holy shit, we need to do 3D now.
Yeah, so, yeah, he's always doing like crazy new cool stuff. He like knows like every new technology that comes out, and just like
everything. So like that's
crazy. Yeah, he is. Yeah, I mean the thing is that he does all these crazy tools and techniques and stuff. But also, if you just give him a pencil, he's really good at drawing. Like, he's got that like fundamental skill there, so that he takes all that skill that he's got from all these different tools and mediums, and just like he picks up a new thing, and he's like, oh, cool, I could do that with this, and just makes these amazing things.
Oh, cool. And let's shift kind of to the whole art camp thing. What kind of when you went through to decide you kind of want to kind of become a teacher, want to have like kind of a platform for people to kind of get a better, cheaper education, and kind of get, I think, like for people who cannot like kind of afford the whole big art school stuff, what kind of inspired you to kind of start the whole art camp thing?
So I started it, it was probably like 7 or 8 years ago now. Sort of at a point when I realized that a lot of art school students during the summers wouldn't work on their art at all. They just like wouldn't study. They'd study in like the fall and then like spring, and then they'd take a break for summer and not do art. And I was like, well, why are you doing that? You should be studying during the summer so you can come back even better in the fall. But they just weren't doing that. And so I made like this like small program. I think it was a 12-week program. And I was just like, all right, here's the fundamental studies that you can do, and you will guaranteed improve your art if you do all these studies. And turns out people really love that. They watched it. It was hugely successful. There was a giant group, and it was fantastic. And I loved that I got to provide this kind of education for a lot of people that also wouldn't normally be able to. Like, there's a lot of people that can't go to art school. Like, I get that because it's stupid expensive. But you can do these studies, and if you do these studies, you will get better. Like, I've done a lot of reading, a lot of research, and from my own personal experience as well, these studies are the best things that got me to improve the fastest. And so I wanted to put out some stuff like that I think would really help people, and it has, and I'm thrilled by that. But I've always just loved teaching. Like, even early on, like as soon as I figure something out, I want to like tell someone else how to do it. That's just like how I work, and I always have. I've always been like, I love the learning process. I love like, oh geez, I figured that out, and then I immediately want to like help somebody else have that same revelation, because that just like gives me a buzz. I love it. Like I even remember I was in my like digital painting class in art school, and it shows you how bad it was, but like nobody knew how to like do any digital painting like 4 or 5 weeks into the class. But like one of the classes, like the teacher missed class or whatever, he had something going on, and so we were all just kind of left on our own. And I just kind of like looked around to my like classmates, and I was like, hey guys, do you guys want to like learn how to actually digital paint? Because I could show you real quick. And like everybody just crowded around my computer, and I like showed them like, here's pressure sensitivity. Like this is how you actually paint. Like we have these fancy tablets and we're not even using them. Like let's do this. So I just love getting to like show people these things and like see that light in their eyes when they're like, oh yeah, I can do that. And they suddenly figure that stuff out. So I love teaching.
Yeah, and teaching in general, you kind of have to kind of reconstruct things and still learn from them when you're kind of giving it to somebody else as well. Like, well, I found myself when I'm kind of telling somebody something like I kind of learn, I'm kind of I don't know if you have those moments when you're talking about it and you're like you're giving them the information, but behind your back you're like, I discovered something else by telling him this. I will tell him later.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's something I do a lot, is that I learn really well if I have to explain it to someone else, because by breaking things down into a way that I can communicate them, I find that I really, really learn them myself.
Yeah. Okay. Noah, kind of the one thing like right now, like students are struggling with stuff like that is the kind of whole social media stuff. It's kind of influencing all the, I have to create work, I have to kind of get followers and stuff like that. Let's talk about kind of the social following thing. How much do you think it's necessary, or is it like you should just close like your door and just not be involved in anything at all and just work on your art?
It really depends. Because like I see people that they're still in art school and they have 250,000 followers. And I'm like, oh my God. I almost feel bad for them though, because like I know what it's like to have a fairly large following, and there's a lot of drawbacks to it. There's a lot of problems with having a big following. There's a lot of pressure on you, and there's a lot of pressure on you to be the same person forever. That is to say, make the same work. If you start changing your work, you're going to lose followers, or your followers aren't going to be happy, or you're going to even just stop growing. And that's its own sort of problem. Like even if you have 250,000 followers, if you stay at 250,000 for like a year or two, like you're going to feel weird and bad. Like, I don't know, social media is awful for like humans, but I almost feel bad for people in that situation because it's too soon. Like when you're still a student, you should be exploring and trying new things and doing new styles and learning stuff and failing and doing awful pieces. But like social media encourages you to do like the same safe sort of thing all the time, because that's how you're going to grow your following. Is if you do consistent art that looks pretty good, you're going to gain a following. But that's not the best way to learn. So I don't know. I'm fairly conflicted about it. And in some ways, social media is just terrible for people. But in the other sense, like it's a great way to show stuff off. And if you start early and grow a fan base, maybe you'll be able to support yourself because of that. Like I couldn't support myself now if I didn't have the fan base that I do. So it's really hard to say. I don't know if I have a hard and fast answer for it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I'll ask like one last questions and we can kind of wrap this up. We kind of at the end of the episode we kind of talk about like people who kind of influence our lives a lot, or like we kind of owe some parts of our lives to some opportunities we received and like boosts we got going forward in the whole art journey. Do you have someone in mind you want to shout out?
It's a hard question. There were definitely a few teachers in school that really helped me. They helped me figure out a lot of stuff early on. And there were a few early art directors that also helped me out, and that they took a chance on me when I was just starting out and were really nice to me, like John Shindahedi at D&D or Jeremy Jarvis at Magic. And they gave me those jobs even though I was absolute beginner, but they took a chance on me, and it turns out it worked out. but I'll always thank all those people that early on took a shot on me. And yeah, and then those teachers that guided me over the years, like Sterling Hunley is one of them. And a few other teachers back then that just kind of shaped a lot of what I did and my direction in art.
Cool. Okay. Thanks for this opportunity, Noah. I will have you'll see Noah's social media, Artcam, or YouTube, or everything. I'll have it like right there. And yeah, thank you very much, Noah. And yeah. See you soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. See ya.